Hollywood has a long, peculiar love affair with a certain kind of comedy, the spectacle of a man, often a black man, in a woman's dress. We've seen the success of Martin as Shanina, Jamie Foxx as Wanda, and Tyler Perry's global phenomenon, Medea. For some reason, people think it's the funniest thing in the world. But the blueprint for this cultural phenomenon wasn't laid by any of them. It was drawn decades earlier by a quiet, intensely smart businessman who took the concept to an unprecedented level of stardom and, in the process, cracked the ceiling of network television for every black entertainer who followed. His name was Flip Wilson. He was more than just a comedian. He was the first black entertainer to host a successful weekly variety show on network television, earning the title of TV's first black superstar. He opened the door for titans like Richard Pryor and George Carlin. But his biggest legacy was a simple, confident black woman named Geraldine Jones. How could a man, haunted by a childhood of abandonment and racist self-loathing, rise up to define an entire era of American comedy with the Flip Wilson Show? And why, despite all his historic achievements, does Flip Wilson still not have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? This is the story of the man who gave us the phrase we all use, "The devil made me do it." The man born Cloy Wilson Jr. arrived in a world defined by scarcity on December 8, 1933, in Jersey City, New Jersey. He was one of 12 children, and his father struggled constantly as a handyman and custodial worker during the Great Depression. This was a childhood marked not just by poverty, but by a profound sense of isolation and pain. Among his siblings, Flip had the darkest skin complexion, and this became the subject of cruel jokes from his own family. His father would mock him, calling him black like burnt toast and like a rotten banana, even telling him he ought to throw him away with the garbage. Though intended as a joke, these words cut deep, leaving the young Flip ashamed and hating his dark skin. The family's precarious existence shattered completely when his mother, Cornelia, ran off with another man. She abandoned the family, taking Flip's baby brother, all of his father's money, and the furniture. Left homeless, Flip and his family were forced to move in with his father's sister, where the ill treatment continued. His aunt and her husband, in particular, were cruel. On one occasion, the husband made Flip put a piece of cardboard on his lap so he and his friends could roll dice, using the boy as a backstop. If Flip moved or nodded off, the man would headbutt him to wake him up. Amidst this chaos, a shocking truth emerged. Flip discovered that his real father was not Cloy Wilson Sr., but a close family friend and his mother's ex-boyfriend, Leroy Tiller. Flip remembered his mother always laughing and saying Leroy was his real father because they shared the same dark skin tone. Leroy Tiller, the first black electrical foreman in New Jersey, had money and would treat Flip well, giving him cash and taking him on rides in his nice car to see shows. It was at one of these comedy shows that Flip decided on his life's path. He wanted to be a comedian. His first taste of the stage came early, around age 8, in an elementary school play called Clara Barton of the Red Cross. Initially cast as a wounded soldier, he volunteered to play the nurse when the girl originally cast fell sick. Donning a wig and acting like a woman for the first time, he had the entire audience laughing like crazy. He also mastered The Dozens, a game of battling insults. He excelled, he said, because he didn't care if people insulted his mother. He hated her anyway for abandoning his family and deceiving his supposed father. Life on the streets eventually led to social services intervention, and Flip was placed in a series of foster homes. He endured severe beatings from his first foster family for bedwetting. The white neighbors' children constantly hurled racial slurs at him. After hitting one of them in the eye, he was beaten by his foster parents and ran away. He kept running away from the beatings and scars, moving through different homes until he was placed in a reform school. For his 9th birthday, his first ever birthday gift was a box of Cracker Jacks and shoe polish from a kind security guard. Tired of being poor and hungry, at age 16, he lied about his age and convinced his aunt to sign papers so he could join the Air Force. The military offered stability, free food and clothes, and a chance to fly a plane. Although he experienced racism, he found the distance from New Jersey liberating. It was here, entertaining captains and sergeants, that his comedy truly began, and he earned the nickname Flip because they said he flipped his lid. After his discharge in 1954, the 20-year-old settled in San Francisco, determined not to return to the hardships of New Jersey. He started doing stand-up at the hotel where he worked as a bellman, making $1 a night. He toured, performing his act, which often involved putting on a blonde wig and acting like a woman, and developing his Reverend Leroy character, later of the Church of What's Happening Now. He eventually decided to go solo, relentlessly writing new jokes and performing even for food. His big break, however, came through his connection with legendary comedian Red Fox. When Red Fox appeared on the Johnny Carson show and was asked who the funniest comedian was, he named Flip Wilson. That national endorsement was the spark that ignited the career of Flip Wilson. Johnny Carson immediately wanted him on the show, transforming Flip Wilson into an overnight star. Carson loved his comedy so much he would even have Flip fill in as a guest host. With his manager Monty Kaye, Flip's price soared, and he was soon performing in Las Vegas, hanging out with the Rat Pack, and even meeting Elvis Presley, who was a big fan of his stand-up. The foundation for the first true black superstar was finally laid. The momentum initiated by Red Fox's endorsement and Flip Wilson's appearances on The Tonight Show quickly propelled him into the comedic stratosphere. He released his first comedy album, signed rising talent like George Carlin to his own label, Little David Records, and began making repeated, high-profile appearances on cultural touchstones like The Ed Sullivan Show and Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. By the late 1960s, the money was rolling in. Flip Wilson bought a Rolls-Royce convertible, his first car ever, along with homes in Hollywood Hills and Miami for his common-law wife, Blondell, and their children. He was now one of the most in-demand entertainers in America. Network television soon came calling. NBC executives recognized his unique ability to captivate both black and white audiences and wanted him to host a show that could draw millions. After a failed attempt at a serious, current events-based pilot that was abandoned following the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy, NBC greenlit a special, The Flip Wilson Special. This special was historic. It was the first time on national television that he debuted his two most famous characters, Reverend Leroy of the Church of What's Happening Now, and his beloved female persona, Geraldine Jones. The reception was ecstatic. The network immediately offered him his own variety series, paying him an unprecedented $1 million a year at the time. But Flip Wilson, the shrewd businessman, insisted on one non-negotiable term. He demanded to own the syndication rights to his show. NBC agreed. This was a massive win, giving him financial control and a piece of the revenue stream that few black artists of the era were able to secure. On September 17, 1970, The Flip Wilson Show premiered on NBC, marking a monumental moment in American television history. It became one of the first successful network variety series starring an African American. Its success was instantaneous and staggering. During its first 2 seasons, it was the nation's second most watched show according to Nielsen ratings. The Flip Wilson Show had better ratings than long-running hits like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and The Mod Squad. At one point, Flip Wilson pulled in more viewers than the Super Bowl, commanding an advertising rate higher than the championship game itself. This incredible success cemented his status as a true black superstar. The show won him 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Writing Achievement and a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Television Series. Wilson understood the power of collaboration, hiring both Richard Pryor and George Carlin to his writing staff. The show became a showcase for black and mainstream talent alike, featuring everyone from Red Fox, Moms Mabley, and Bill Cosby to Lucille Ball and the Jackson 5. But the true star of the show was always Geraldine Jones. Draped in brightly colored dresses, often with dramatic wigs, Geraldine captivated America with her sass, charm, and iconic catchphrases. It was through her voice that Flip Wilson introduced phrases that became embedded in the national lexicon. The devil made me do it, when you're hot, when you're not, and what you see is what you get. The catchphrase, "The devil made me do it," even became the title of his Grammy-winning comedy album. Her popularity was so immense that a 2-sided talking doll featuring both Flip Wilson and Geraldine Jones was released, reciting these famous lines. Flip Wilson had achieved what no one before him had, creating a cultural phenomenon that was undeniably black, yet universally loved, establishing his legacy as a pioneer who changed the landscape of American entertainment. The blinding light of superstardom cast a long shadow. With immense wealth and influence came a devastating personal toll. Flip Wilson began to heavily abuse drugs and alcohol, particularly cocaine. It became such a part of his life that he even trained his young sons to roll his marijuana joints for him. But the darkness wasn't just internal. It was amplified by controversy from the very community he was supposed to represent. While The Flip Wilson Show was a national sensation, the central character, Geraldine Jones, became a flashpoint for intense criticism within the black community. Many black men turned off their televisions, concerned that seeing a man in a woman's dress was a harmful representation of black masculinity. Others felt that Geraldine Jones was an insult to black women. Even his other celebrated character, Reverend Leroy of the Church of What's Happening Now, drew fire from churchgoers who viewed him as insulting the black church and God. The tension escalated publicly, most notably with his friend and colleague Richard Pryor. Pryor, known for his raw, uncompromising comedy, publicly attacked Flip Wilson, labeling him a house Negro for NBC, suggesting Flip had forgotten his roots for network approval. The strained relationship reached a breaking point during a taping of The Flip Wilson Show. After being booed by the audience, Pryor, in a shocking display, pulled out his genitals and told the audience to suck it. Flip Wilson, enraged, almost came to blows with Pryor and had him forcibly removed from the set. The inevitable decline arrived swiftly. On June 27, 1974, The Flip Wilson Show ended its run after 4 successful years. Flip claimed he decided to end the show to spend more time as a full-time father, having secured full custody of his 4 children by paying their mother, Blondell, $1 million. Yet, even this victory was tinged with sadness. His children, now attending predominantly white private schools, were relentlessly teased by their classmates who called their father gay because he wore a dress on TV, joking that, "the devil made me do it," applied to him. The turmoil continued to mount. In the following years, his long-term girlfriend sued him for a massive $4 million for her services. He soon developed a pattern of dating much younger women, who invariably broke up with him and sued for a portion of his wealth, leading him to get a vasectomy to stop further entanglement. The full extent of his addiction was exposed in 1981 when Flip Wilson was arrested and charged with possession of cocaine, hash oil, and marijuana at the Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. Although the case was dismissed because the search was ruled illegal, the scandal cost him an advertising campaign with Diet 7-Up that would have featured his famous Geraldine Jones character. Desperate for a comeback, he starred in the 1985 CBS sitcom Charlie and Company. He hoped to succeed simply as a talented actor, leaving behind the dresses and wigs. But the show was a failure. Ratings were so low that producers attempted to convince him to use his Geraldine Jones voice for some lines. Flip Wilson refused, feeling he had created a monster with the character, and the show was cancelled after a single season. The final heartbreak came in 1993 when his son, David, a professional golf player, was paralyzed from the shoulders down in a motorcycle accident. This tragedy deepened Flip's depression, driving him further back into drug abuse. The pioneer who brought laughter to millions was now alone, struggling, and spiraling into a quiet despair. The story of Flip Wilson is more than a celebrity biography. It is a critical chapter in the history of black achievement in American media. He was, quite literally, a trailblazer. As the host of the Flip Wilson Show, he achieved a level of mainstream success and cultural penetration that was unprecedented for a black man on network television in the 1970s. He became the black superstar who made America laugh, transcending the color lines of the era. His savvy was not limited to the stage. Flip Wilson was a deeply intelligent businessman. His demand to own the syndication rights to the Flip Wilson Show was a revolutionary move, securing his financial future and setting a powerful precedent for ownership and control for future black artists. When the show concluded, his net worth was estimated between $12 and $15 million, a testament to his foresight. However, this success came with the profound burden of representation. The criticism that he was a house Negro from contemporaries like Richard Pryor reflected the deep, unresolved tensions within the black community about what kind of image was acceptable to the white mainstream. Yet, it is an undeniable fact that Flip Wilson directly uplifted the careers of those same critics, hiring both Richard Pryor and George Carlin to his writing staff. He was, in effect, building the bridge even while being targeted by friendly fire. The influence of Geraldine Jones and the phrase, "the devil made me do it," spread everywhere. It became the common language, adopted by everyone from children in schoolyards to adults joking in the workplace. He offered a form of escapism rooted in authentic black humor, a sharp, quick-witted, and self-assured character that the whole nation could imitate. In 1976, years after his show ended, Flip Wilson hosted The Tonight Show where singer Minnie Riperton revealed she had breast cancer and had only months to live. As the chairman of the American Cancer Society at the time, Flip was devastated by the news. This public moment of vulnerability, a black superstar grappling with life, death, and his role in the world, highlighted the human core beneath the comedic genius, foreshadowing his own private struggles and eventual fate. He may have been done with Geraldine Jones, but the value he created for American comedy remains indelible. The darkness that had plagued Flip Wilson's life since childhood finally descended in his final years. In 1998, he noticed severe weight loss, which he initially welcomed, but soon the sharp, unbearable pain in his stomach began. Doctors initially suspected liver stones, but a specialist delivered the crushing diagnosis: liver cancer. There was nothing more that could be done, and he was given only 2 to 3 months to live. In his despair, Flip Wilson continued to use drugs, hoping to ease the relentless physical pain. On November 25, 1998, a day before Thanksgiving, Flip Wilson succumbed to liver cancer. He was 64 years old. The final irony in the life of this groundbreaking artist is perhaps the most poignant. Flip Wilson, the man who was TV's first black superstar, whose ratings surpassed the Super Bowl, and whose work paved the way for comedians like Richard Pryor, still does not have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. His physical legacy on that famous sidewalk is absent. However, Flip Wilson's true impact is written in the cultural code of America. Beyond the Flip Wilson show and the brilliant, complex character of Geraldine Jones, his legacy is one of compassion and opportunity. In his will, he included a clause providing funding for annual scholarships at Rutgers University and other schools across the nation for students studying journalism. The man who was mocked and rejected as a child ensured that others would have the chance to tell their stories. The saga of Flip Wilson reminds us that those who bring the greatest laughter often carry the heaviest burdens. He paid an enormous price for his pioneering success, the abandonment of family, the ruthless self-criticism, and the public scrutiny of his iconic character. Yet, through his brilliance and entrepreneurial vision, he carved out space for the next generation. He was an American success story, flawed and unforgettable, leaving behind an indelible phrase that perfectly summarized his struggles and triumphs: "The devil made me do it." What part of Flip Wilson's life or the magic of the Flip Wilson show do you remember most? Did the legendary Geraldine Jones bring light to your household? Share your memories in the comments below. We read every one. If this story of the original black superstar resonates with you, subscribe to our channel to continue honoring the trailblazers who changed the course of American history.